Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's episode of AI Would Agree. After what is now 6 months worth of episodes, I'm pleased to say I'm still here. It's even starting to feel a little bit natural. Thank you for everybody who's a regular viewer of the show. I've had so many people over the last couple of weeks tell me that they find value in what we're doing, and that's the whole point of it, is to kind of bring some cross-industry learning to different sectors, help people understand how different businesses approach their customer service, customer experience, technology, data and AI, and just to provide a little bit something different on LinkedIn, because there's only so many empowering quotes that you can deal with in any one day, right? So to my guest for this week, I'm pleased to add Sarah from Help Me Angela to the show. Thank you for coming along, Sarah. You all right?
My pleasure, Paul. Yes, I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. We've been talking for probably about 3 or 4 months now, on and off. And originally I found you because you attended one of my webinars, so thanks very much for that. At least I know one person turned up. But the other side of things was when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, we share something in common in terms of having worked in the police force. So me as a volunteer, you as a paid officer. Sarah, how on earth do you go from working in the police to working in what is effectively a contact centre or as part of a software app? What's that about? How did you end up in the journey that you've been on, please?
I mean, I do ask myself that question all the time, to be honest. But an incredible journey, really, from joining the police force when I was 22, 23 years old, and towards the end of my service, predominantly because of budget cuts and austerity, actually ending up working in the force control room at Lancashire Police. And during that time, I was asked to go onto a change management team. And in order to kind of instill change and make change happen, the team that I was working on wanted to do that change with the staff rather than to them. So because of that, and in order to build their trust, I actually became a proficient 999 call handler and learn everything about the contact centre back to front. And then towards sort of the end of my police service, as it were, I identified numerous training gaps in the control room. And I remember one day saying to a member of the senior management team, how come this particular course isn't delivered? And she said, well, we've not had anyone to deliver it. So I said, well, I'll do it. So from that, as well as being a police officer, a proficient 999 operator, and then a qualified trainer, it was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the phrase, Paul, or not. Someone said to me in relation to a Japanese phrase, the word ikigai. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Yeah? Okay. So what do you love? What are you good at? And what can you get paid to do? And as much as I loved being a police officer, as much as I enjoyed the camaraderie and not knowing what I was going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, I also loved the contact centre, loved being a trainer, and thought to myself, right, I found my ikigai, I found my passion, and took the giant leap of faith in November 2019, to leave the police, and subsequently ended up, again, to cut a long story short, working in Saudi Arabia as a trainer. So I was responsible for training 1,200 female military students in Riyadh. Absolutely loved it. But then you could say I became self-employed at the worst time ever. So I went from being employed to self-employed to unemployed because COVID struck and, obviously really affected training. So then it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? And I'm not one to sort of sit on my laurels. So I was on a Facebook page one day, jobs for ex-police officers, and our chief ambassador at Help Me Angela, Michelle Roycroft, she'd sort of put a post on there and said, okay, I'm looking for someone who's preferably ex-police, qualified trainer, and has knowledge of the contact centre. Tick, tick, tick. I know. So yeah, I could never have planned that. Needless to say, I got in contact with her, and the rest is history. So that's my transition, really. I mean, I could talk about it for hours, as I'm sure you could probably tell, but I know we've only got 25 minutes. But ultimately, yeah, fantastic journey. And now at Help Me Angela, I'm able to utilise my policing skills as well as my training in the 999 contact centre arena.
So there's a couple of things that I want to say there. And for anybody who's never been in a 999 contact centre, I was discussing this with Sarah the other day. I've never worked in that environment. I've seen it. I've not worked in that environment. And I cannot imagine the skill set necessary to be proficient at that role. I mean, I've been in, Durham Constabulary's contact centre, the comms room, where the guys are sat there with 3 monitors, with multiple applications open on each monitor, stereo headphones on with a different police channel on each ear, and then 999 calls coming in over the top of both channels at the same time, whilst trying to deal with police officers who are under pressure because there's not enough of them, limited resources, problem solving, people under pressure, vulnerable people phoning you up, needing support, and having to be critical thinking at all times. I cannot imagine how people last more than 5 minutes in that role. So hats off. If there is any dispatch room workers or comms room workers watching the show, I absolutely take my hat off, because you guys do a fantastic job, having been on the receiving end of the calmness that channel supports the officers with. Something else that kind of touched on what you were saying there around passion, and I completely agree with you. I think Sir Ken Robinson, the late great Sir Ken Robinson, bless him, made a really great point that some people find their why, find their passion in life. Yeah. And it doesn't always correlate with what you do as a job. Really good violinists, but can't make a living playing the violin. It's not enough. There's not enough roles out there for somebody to make a living doing that. But the very few people that get to work with their passion are in their element, and you can immediately tell when somebody's in their element, and you can see that's written all over your face, Sarah. So you're absolutely in the right job. Well, so tell me a little bit more about. Michelle says hi. Best decision she ever.
Hi, Michelle.
Watching. So tell me a little bit more about Help Me Angela. What's the purpose of that?
So at Help Me Angela, we have designed and developed a personal safety app. So as police officers, what we tend to find, again, I'll sort of mention the budget cuts and austerity, that you are reactive. So you generally, as a police officer, and I'm sure you found this as well, Paul, when you attend the scene of a crime, you are already dealing with the victim. Now, at Help Me Angela, what we want to do is we want to prevent people from becoming a victim of crime. And, Michelle, she's just said hi. She's an ex-police officer as well. So obviously being on the kind of other end of that, in respect of when we used to talk to victims of crime and say to them, okay, so you believe that you were being followed. How come you didn't call the police? Well, I didn't want to waste the time. Or, well, I didn't know for sure that I was being followed. And then ultimately they then only contact the police once that horse has bolted, as it were. So what we want to do is we don't want to be the police. We want to be that kind of stopgap, that preventative, so that if someone is in a situation whereby they feel that they're being followed, they're on an online date that's gone, terribly wrong, maybe they've been catfished, that kind of thing, or they simply want some personal safety advice, that they can contact us at the touch of a button and we will be there. And, this might sound really corny, Paul, but we can honestly say we've got them. We've got you as a member. As you're aware, a lot of people think that when you call 999, the police know your location. Well, actually they don't. They then have to go on and do a cell sighting. Whereas at Help Me Angela, we have incredible safety technology whereby if a member does require our assistance, then we know their exact location and we can direct them to a place of safety. We can arrange for them to have a safe ride home. We can offer them that personal safety advice. You'll be surprised how many people go on an online date without initially FaceTiming their day, just to make sure that they're not being catfished. So it's just simple advice like that. But we are there for them. And the brilliant thing about Help Me Angela is we are available 24/7, 365. We have personal safety specialists who have been trained by myself to the standard of a 999 operator to be able to give that reassurance, that advice, that support, and just, as our mission says, enable that person to feel safer. So, I mean, the app is fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because it really genuinely is. And the amount of people that have the app and actually say, we feel reassured. Our purpose is that everyone deserves to have a guardian angel, because feeling safe isn't a privilege. It's your right. It's your right to be able to walk down the street and not fear that someone is following you, or, that you're having to look over your shoulder. And it's not just for women either. It's for everyone. We aren't just targeting women. Anyone can be a victim of crime. Anyone can be vulnerable at any one time, and anyone can be the victim of crime. Whether you're a 5-foot female or a 6'5" man, it just makes no difference whatsoever.
I love that you addressed that. You must have been reading my mind, because that was going to be my very next
was
point.
It?
I'm aware that there are a lot of stereotypes out there, especially if you're a bloke, if you're a man, that you kind of, you don't need any help. You'll be all right. You'll be fine. And certainly there are more males that are comfortable in those sorts of environments without needing that support. Absolutely. But the point is, you shouldn't feel that it's anything to do with your gender as to whether you need some assistance or support or security, even of knowing that I guess you guys have done your job if nobody needs to actually call you, right?
No. So basically what happens is you have the app, and if you need our assistance, you press a button and our contact centre will then call that person back. So our contact centre is available, as I said earlier, 24/7, 365, and one of the trained personal safety specialists will be on the other end of that phone to guide that person to safety, give them reassurance, give them advice. And one thing as well, from being a police officer, and something that it used to kind of be a bit of a bugbear of mine, but I used to say, for instance, deal with a victim of crime. So deal with, for instance, someone who'd been, the victim of a sexual offence, and the aftercare that we could offer as police officers and as a constabulary as a whole was very limited, because we were literally going from job to job to job, and there was not enough money in the pot, as it were, to be able to provide that victim with any sort of aftercare. And then we did our best, but there's only so much that you can do. So another kind of USP of our app is that we offer an incident recovery an incident recovery program. I had to think then, Paul. So we call it the IRP, the Incident Recovery Program. And ultimately, if you are the victim of a crime and you say, for instance, do need counselling, you need kind of any sort of therapy, it might just be dental treatment, scar treatment, emergency accommodation for the evening if you're a victim of domestic abuse, we will offer that as part of your package, which I think is incredible, So we are just there for the person, trying to prevent them from becoming a victim. We are there for them as well if, unfortunately, they do become that victim of a personal assault.
I would imagine that from a contact centre and a business perspective, that can put a tremendous pressure on the people that are responsible for answering those calls and dealing with the actions needed.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that support and the mental welfare of the advisors that are working with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer of the 70-20-10 model, in that 70% of people kind of learn by doing. So our training has incorporated real life experiential learning, such as group work and role plays. So our personal safety specialists have gone through, I always say, we'll train worst case scenario, and some of these are really worst case scenario role plays, because if you can deal with that, you can deal with any situation. So they're trained in respect of, they have the knowledge, the skills and the ability to be able to assist our members at first point of contact. I've also utilised the police national decision model, and I've called it, sounds cheesy, but the Help Me Angela decision model, in that what they do is they look at the intel, they look at the evidence that's available to them, and then they make a decision based on risk, threat and vulnerability. So, it is a hard job. it is a hard job. And that's why I've had to find a contact centre that has the ability to be able to handle that, because, as we know, one size doesn't fit all. And there are a lot of contact centres out there, especially from my experience, that focus on the individual process and actually lose sight of the end-to-end customer experience. Whereas the contact centre that we've very recently transitioned to understands the value of active listening and empathy. And, they've really got it right, which is fantastic.
I can tell that they're a big fan of what you're doing, because it seems like your fan club must be out in
really?
Because Martin, who I believe you're about to talk about, has just kind of commented on as well. I might as well put him up on the screen, give him his moment of glory at the same time. So,
thank you, Martin. That's so kind.
I presume where we're going next with this is the fact that you've just moved to Lemon Outsourcers, which are a close business to my home address. So it's somebody I've had my eye on for a while. Talk me through what is it that you've looked for before making your decision with Lemon.
Yeah, I mean, due to sort of previous experiences and talking about the not one size fits all, unfortunately, we have been in a position whereby we've been with a call centre who hasn't really focused on the customer. And that's not just, for instance, our members, that's the client itself. So I really wanted to find a contact centre that was bespoke, but also reflected our values. And, at Lemon, their values are trust, team. We are at Help Me Angela part of a fantastic team of people who I hope are watching today. Passion and, most importantly, empathy. And the values that they have reflect ours. So when I kind of obviously did a lot of research, looked at hundreds of contact centres across the UK, and I was actually recommended to Lemon by a lady called Marianne, who I know you're very familiar with.
Maybe you guessed on our show, yeah.
Yes. And, myself and Michelle Roycroft, we went up to Stockton-on-Tees, a place that we've never been to before, and had such a warm welcome. And it was just lovely because we had that rapport straight away. So ultimately, you develop that relationship, you have that trust, you realise that you've got the same values. And Lemon they're very kind of much they value their staff. They value their staff and they value their clients. And, I'm not just saying this, but for the 3 weeks that I was there, they were amazing, so hospitable, so welcoming. And you can really tell that everyone is on the same page and that ultimately we each understand each other's purpose, which is really, really important.
I think Martin just says the tenner's in the post. No, I'm joking. But no, it's lovely. It's lovely to see two businesses that have found each other, that have such a close relationship, and I can see that from the conversations that we've had, how close you guys are, and I think it's an obvious match between the two of you, and it's something that we're quite passionate about at the MOJO-CX company, is that I'll quite often say to businesses, if I don't feel like there's a good fit, I will be the first person to tell you, because as a small new operator, I'm not going to say small anymore because we're still rapidly growing, but as a fairly new player in the space, we can't afford to make those mistakes. In the same way, a lot of clients, such as yourselves, can't afford to make those mistakes. And when you do find that sort of symbiosis with your business partners, it really does take your business to another level. So pleased that you guys have found each other and that it seems to be working out well for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
What are the measures by which you talk to your agents about? Because every contact centre and every business has measures that they deem as success within their business. Now, for a business such as yours, I can't imagine average handle time something that gets discussed very often, because you're not going to run those conversations. No. So, out of curiosity, how do you develop your team to be more effective at what they do? I'm assuming it's more qualitative, right?
Absolutely, yeah, no, definitely. What I am completely against are arbitrary targets, and from working in the contact centre at Lancashire Constabulary and other contact centres, unfortunately, that's what many of the agents are kind of measured on. Whereas at Help Me Angela, call handling times don't exist. It's all about, for us, being able to deal with that member at first point of contact, to be able to deal with them effectively, efficiently, and provide that level of service. We have to kind of look at the organisation from the outside in, really, and make it purely customer focused, and that's what Lemon has done, and that's what Lemon has allowed me to do, because they've sort of said, right, this is a dedicated team, and ultimately they will have that autonomy and empowerment to be able to make those decisions, but most importantly, be able to listen to the customer's needs and empathise with them. At the end of the day, very similar to sort of a 999 situation, the personal safety specialist could be dealing with anything. So it's really, really important that they are able to understand the scenario and be able to deal with that, whether that's, as I said earlier, arranging a safe ride home, getting that person to a place of safety. We have direct links with all the constabularies in the UK, but also as well signposting in respect of vulnerability and that kind of thing. So in a way, I have developed a really good relationship with the dedicated team, because I think that's vitally important, and given them those skills, but trust to be able to deal with our member. So in respect of measures, our measure is our purpose, in that, have you enabled that person to feel safer? And if you can say yes, then that's all I'm looking for. That's the tick in the box. It's as simple as that.
I guess it's, to a certain extent, it's about thinking outside of the box in terms of your role as well, because not every situation fits the framework that you've been given. It's that ability to think critically and kind of calmly in the circumstances.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not, the agents, they don't look at scripts. Nothing is scripted. As you say, it's about thinking outside the box, looking at the bigger picture, thinking holistically, and thinking, right, what are my options in order to enable this person to feel safer? And this is where this sort of help me Angela decision model kicks in, because they have the training in respect of what's your purpose and how are you going to achieve it. Another thing as well, which I really like about Lemon, and I know I'm really bigging Lemon up here, but is that I love the fact that their team leaders and their managers are in the work with the staff. So what I found in previous call centres is that the management sit outside of the work, whereas these guys actually understand what's going on. They want to get involved as well. They want to help. So because of that, ultimately the agents have that trust and that rapport with the management and the team leaders within the work, and that's been really, really effective and really helped me whilst I've been up there delivering the training.
I think it's more critical in some businesses than others for the team leaders to intrinsically understand the work.
Yes.
And I think, as I understand the sorts of clients and partners that Lemon have, and you're probably sitting like amongst them as a very similar fit to some of their other clients, I think, in terms of what services are being provided. I think it becomes obvious that in that sort of environment, it is definitely an advantage that your team leaders are involved directly, so that they can appreciate the concerns and sort of pressures that their role has put on them.
Definitely.
How do you go about finding advisors that are suitable for that sort of role, Sarah? Is that something that you've had to do? Is it, how do you go about? Because they're a rare breed, right?
You know what? They are a rare breed. Lemon have provided us with some fantastic agents. The role isn't for everyone, Paul. As you're aware, it might be that some agents are fantastic at dealing with customers by utilising a script, whereas kind of, as we said earlier, this is about thinking outside the box and looking at the bigger picture. And because of the nature of the calls that they may have to deal with, it might be because of previous personal experiences or things that are going on in their home life currently, that they don't want to be part of it. And it's not because they don't love the brand. It's not because they don't love Help Me Angela. It's because they don't want to deal with that particularly vulnerable person because of things that may have happened to them or are ongoing at this moment in time. So what we always say is honesty is the best policy. And, because I am able to build that relationship and rapport with all the staff that I am delivering the training to, they will come up to me and say, is this for me or is this not for me? And, we'll have that honest conversation. It might be that over time we can coach someone and give them that support whereby they are then fit for the role. But, if not, then they're still part of the team as far as I'm concerned. Because at the end of the day, it's all about being able to deal with our members as soon as they press that help request button. Yes. And if it's a matter of someone jumping in on the phone and being able to enable that person to feel safer, then that is the priority. So, but yeah, it's not for everyone.
I think for me, there's a couple of things that keep coming to the surface when we have these conversations, and we talk almost daily at the moment in the contact centre industry about vulnerable customers. We all know it's a big issue. We know it's a growing issue. We know it's only going to get worse, and there's a lot of conversation about how technology can support humans to really get to the thick of all of that. One of the things that I'm a big proponent of, and you've probably heard me say this in other shows, is understanding, detecting and supporting vulnerable agents as well as vulnerable customers.
Yes.
And there's some interesting conversations going around the fringes. I guess that's probably something that you guys have to consider almost as a given within the business that you work in. What's really interesting, though, is where those businesses kind of there are other businesses out there where it's not as common to consider that the agents might be vulnerable. But when you take into account that 54% of the British population, adult population, is and that's a dated figure, right? That's definitely gone up by now. Are in vulnerable situations. It's not just your customers that are vulnerable, it's definitely your agents as well. And it's about having that closeness with your team to understand that you might be dealing with a high pressure call and you might react to it very differently to how you'd normally react, because actually you've got something going on at home that you should have felt comfortable to disclose before your shift started, or talk to somebody about and just let somebody know, I might not be dealing with things in the most appropriate way today because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
it's about creating that relationship in the environment, right? So I'm assuming that's something that you guys are very close to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and that's why as I said earlier, it's imperative, especially in our situation, to have the leaders within the work, because if someone is, say, for instance, having a bad day or they've taken a bad call, then that can be recognised immediately. I've always said it's not about cracking the whip because someone hasn't particularly dealt with something properly. It's about understanding why they haven't dealt with that person properly. And it could be, for instance, that something has happened to them within their home life, or they have just taken a call that's either resonated with them, brought up past experiences, or just shocked them because of the nature of it. So that's why we have built this really close-knit team, because we want our staff, our personal safety specialists, to either be able to pick up the phone and contact me, contact Michelle, speak to their own team leaders within the work. And that's a really good thing about Lemon, because they will be able to identify that and as a result deal with it. And as you say, I think it's really, really prevalent. And, if we are going to look after our staff and our customers, it's all about retention as well, then we need to have the ability to be able to do that and to be able to support our staff. And that's something that's really close to home with me, especially from working in the police, because the amount of calls that the operators used to take and used to see people walking out of the room in floods of tears, it's about being equipped to be able to help them and support them and give them that time, really, if they need it, before they then have to take the next call, as it were. So, yeah, really, really vitally important. And like you say, it's not just necessarily the members that Help Me Angela. Anyone can be vulnerable at any one time. And, contact centre agents now are dealing with people who don't have enough money to pay the gas and electricity bills. and as a result of it are suffering mentally, are suicidal. So I think it's certainly COVID and everything else has certainly opened up this sort of field, really, whereby it's really, really important that we are able to identify that vulnerability as a leader within the workplace.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Sarah, it's been fantastic chatting to you. We've come to the end of the half hour. It's really weird having these conversations because sometimes I can have a really good conversation and actually whilst I'm working, I'm jotting down people I need to introduce you to because there's some great connections out there that I think will really resonate with you. Some of whom I'm definitely going to have on the show in the not too distant future. But thank you very much for coming along today. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I'm sure Lemon will be doubling their revenue in the next year on the you've heaped on them. I hope they deliver. But yeah, no, great to speak to you today. Great for you to have brought so many people to watch the show as well. Nice to see some comments dropping in. Great to hear about how you guys are doing, and it's a fantastic business. I wish you all the luck in the world. Thank you very much for coming along to the show, and I hope everybody found that useful. I'll see you all again next Thursday at 3:00. Bye-bye.